What is up, you guys? This is the Because of Sales podcast, episode number 2. We've got John Mao on this one. John Mao went from $130 in his bank account in September 2023 to making $250,000 per month in April 2025. A year and a half, that kind of jump. This guy knows something, so you're going to want to learn that. Before we get into that, I want to ask you to go down below and subscribe to our newsletter. It's the first link in the description. Because of Sales is a newsletter first media company that helps you get better at your sales job so it doesn't ruin your life, so you actually enjoy your life and you enjoy the career that you chose. In this week's newsletter edition, we're giving you a ton of cool AI stuff, some recent articles that can help you communicate better, get better at negotiating, some updates from some large companies, some funny Reddit threads, and just overall things that are going to give you a pulse on the industry as a sales professional. We're also going to have some of the highlights from this interview with John in that newsletter, but there's a ton of value in subscribing to the newsletter. We send it every Wednesday, and we'd love to send it to you as well. So go down below, first link in the description, subscribe to our newsletter. You can unsubscribe at any time if you change your mind. But now let's get back into the podcast. All right, you guys, Because of Sales podcast, episode 2, we have none other than the Johnny Mao. John, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, of course.
So I wanted to have a special guest for the second podcast. John is someone I've gotten to know pretty well over the last 6 months or so, and I've watched him in real time absolutely start ripping from being a really high-paid sales rep to being a really high-paid business owner. And so he's going to give some perspective on both of those things, which I'm excited to dive into. Whether you're a sales rep or business owner, you should be able to get some value out of this. But why I wanted to have you on specifically, John, is because it seems like you've really upgraded your life in a way that's served you a lot, not just in like a material way, but I mean, the quality of life that you're living now versus when I've seen those screenshots you post of like, dude, one day I'm going to make it 100K per month.
Yeah.
Like you've really like come up in terms of quality of life. And because of sales, our big thing is showing people how if you just get good at this skill, what it can unlock for you aside from a paycheck. So that's why I wanted to have you on. John, would you mind like giving anyone who might not know you, would you mind giving them the rundown on what you're up to right now?
Yeah, so right now I essentially run a sales training and sales agency. So they kind of go hand in hand. Sales training helps with recruitment, sales agency, I just run a few teams. But that's basically what I have going on now. So taking rev share of different companies, running all of their sales processes, all of their sales teams, and then training individual reps as well.
Sweet. So pretty, I think for those that are in sales, especially in the high ticket space, John just so happens to be in the high ticket space. That is not our entire focus, but he's a good connection. So I wanted to have him. But yeah, I mean, for you guys that are listening that are just like a sales rep right now, what you're about to hear in this podcast from a career perspective or from like a trajectory perspective is attainable for a lot of you guys, like going from sales rep to managing teams to helping other people do the same. So he's, what was it, like a year and a half ago is when you were starting?
Yeah, I mean, like I've been in the entrepreneurship game. I'm sure everyone's talking about selling candy out of their locker and all that. But I really got into the sales piece of things when I started a marketing agency when I was a sophomore in college. So I'm 22 now. So what is that, like 3 years ago?
Yeah. What else did you try in this entrepreneurship game?
Dude, everything. I tried drop shipping. I tried the home service route, like pressure washing, things like that. I sold fidget spinners. I sold silly bands. I sold everything, bro. Seriously. In elementary school, middle school, up until high school, college.
What were the margins like on the silly bands?
Very slim. Very, very slim.
Yeah. That's funny. I did e-com. I did pressure washing as well. I think failing e-com is a rite of passage, man, but that's what gets you hooked into the online business stuff. Well, anyways, so going back, like you mentioned middle school and high school, you're selling stuff. I'm curious, man, because everyone's story is different in terms of like where you got inspiration from and kind of how you ended up getting into sales to begin with. When you were coming up with like your parents or any siblings, did you have anyone in your corner who was like, hey, John, you might want to consider sales or entrepreneurship, or is this something you found on your own?
I mean, ever since I was a kid, my dad always tells me that I was born to sell, but I never really took it into consideration. I've always been the type of guy that I was always hustling with something. Because sports was not my thing. I was really undersized compared to everyone. And so I had to find like another route. So I knew that entrepreneurship was going to be, obviously I didn't know it from the beginning because I didn't even know what entrepreneurship was. But it just so happened that every action I took was in line with like the hustle of what it takes.
Interesting. So what I would think, I would hear that and I would think, okay, like you are accountable, you know how to get shit done. I don't know, you're strategic. But like if you weren't doing sports at a young age, like what actions were you taking where your dad would be like, you're born to sell? I'm curious.
Because I was great at arguing, and I was just I was a winner when it came to like everything around. How do I explain it? I was a winner. Like I was just not a loser. I hated losing
Yeah.
with every single thing that I did, whether it be an argument with a friend or whatever it is, and I was just naturally persuasive.
That's funny because I never saw myself as a salesperson, but one thing I always had was like natural persuasiveness. Like if I wanted something, I could usually get it. Not in like a bratty kind of way, but in a like this makes more sense than it doesn't. Let me show you why, and then you get what you want. So that's
Exactly.
funny.
Yeah.
Do your I know you said your parents said you're born to sell. Your dad said you're basically born to sell. Do they come from like a sales or entrepreneurship background themselves?
My dad does. He's like a mortgage loan officer, whatever. So they have to do some form of selling with them, but no entrepreneurship at all.
Sure. Okay. So you're naturally persuasive. You're a winner. You know how to get what you want. Did you have any resistance to sales, like being a salesperson?
The only resistance I had to it was involved with ego. Because I always wanted to be, I hated being like the number two guy. And in my mind, in my like delusional mind, I thought being the sales guy was like the classic, the 9 to 5 thing. Even though looking back, I'm like, dude, if I didn't do that, I would not even be close to where I'm at now. So the
Yeah.
only thing was like, it went against my ego of I want to be a business owner and I want to skip the line.
Yeah. In reality, sales, at least for you, from what I understand in the beginning, was more like a 9 to 9 kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's fast forward a little bit. Actually, no. I was going to fast forward to sales, but I want to touch on the college piece because people listening to this probably like a very applicable experience to people listening here is going to college, not going to college, dropping out. When you went to college, if I understand correctly, you dropped out, correct? And when you dropped out, is that when you got into sales?
No, I was working full time while in college, while going to school. So I was balancing. I was in a fraternity. So I was in a fraternity. I was living in a frat house of like 30 guys, and I would sit there working on my marketing agency, taking sales calls in our chapter room, while there would just be the most bizarre things going on around me. So that was kind of where it started sophomore year. Leading into junior year is when I got like my first actual sales role and started working under someone else in a marketing agency. And then I dropped out like week 1 of junior year.
Was it the sales role that you got and had given you confidence that like this was a path worth pursuing, or what was that domino that fell where you were like, I need to drop out?
I actually got objection handled into dropping out. I had no intention of doing it whatsoever, but I like to think everything happens for a reason. It was just like a random Saturday. Had zero intention of dropping out, even thinking about it. Although the whole three years I was there, I always wanted to. But it was always that thing where I was like, you're not going to do it. So on like a random Saturday, I got on with my sales manager at the time, who was the CEO of the company that I was working for. It was more of a smaller company. They were doing like 80,000 a month. So I was like it was more of like a friendship with him rather than like an actual type company. But I just got on, and it was him and 2 friends, and they just basically did a full discovery on me like a normal sales call. And it was 3 hours of objection handling, which resulted in me sending an email to my advisor saying I'm out. And I got in my Tacoma and I drove home.
Was the objective of that call for them to get you to drop out, or was that just like a side conversation?
No, the objective was for me to meet them because they were really, really good at sales. And it was not only that point in my life, but like that was when I started to get obsessed. So I
Yeah.
wanted it super bad. And I saw these 2 guys who were like number 1. And the number 1 spot is always just something that's intrigued me. So I wanted to get on with them, and I was talking to them. And then it literally ended with him saying, send me a $500 deposit. And if you drop out, I'll send it back to you. And I had about $500, or I didn't have $500. I think I had like 157. And I told him I couldn't do 500, but I was finally committed. I was like, all right, fuck it, bro. I'll send it to you. And he was like, no, I just wanted your commitment. So then I sent the email right there. And then I actually got baptized the next morning. And then I went back.
Interesting. What besides the financial objection, what was your objection to dropping out, and then what was their main overcome? Like from this 3-hour conversation, if you had to think back to like the point where you were like, all right, dude, they're right, I need to do this. What was that point?
It was what's the worst thing that can happen? Like truly, what is the bigger risk? And this is like a huge objection handle that I'll use to this day. It's like, what would be the real risk for you to drop out and go and chase your dreams and try to achieve it, knowing that 2 years later, 3 years later, if you really wanted to, you could re-enroll? Or would it be riskier to like lay it all on the line, put all the chips on the table, and see where it ends up? And when that happened, I was like, okay, the whole reason why I'm not doing this is because of judgment from others. And if I'm trying to be a 1% type guy, and I listen to 99% of people on what I should do with my life, then I'm going to stay in the 99.
What did your parents think of this?
They hated it. They hated it. But they knew I was like a ticking time bomb the whole time I was in college.
Yeah.
So to a degree, I think they expected it. At some point, they just didn't think I would ever pull the trigger. They knew I would figure it out because they knew that I was the type of guy that was not going to like lose in a scenario like that just because of the obsession, and I knew exactly what I wanted. But it was also, I feel like the judgment from other people was the main thing that was hurting that situation, which I didn't take into account. Like I thought that, okay, I might burn a bridge with my parents right now and I'll mend it a year later. But I didn't realize how much it would affect everyone around me. Because then it's like judgment from all other people that were looking at me like, oh, he's a loser. And then now they attribute that to like the parents that failed. That was the main thing that really, really hurt me when I dropped out, and them.
Yeah. There's something about that duo of being the guy who holds yourself to a super high standard and being like quote unquote a winner, but then also being very considerate of other people's opinion of you. I feel like I'm similar in that extent, and not letting people, but like other people's influence really not allowing you to drop out with such ease, even though you would make it. Like it's just an interesting dynamic that I think a lot of salespeople have. But anyway, so you dropped out. You're working in this marketing agency as a sales rep. Were you still running your own marketing agency at the same time?
No, at that point I committed to just being the best sales rep I could. So that was my path from there on out.
And then in this marketing agency, you become the best sales rep that you can. Obviously, you get better as the story goes on here. But at a certain point in time, you come in contact with a company that's doing $4 million per month, like a peak sales role, right? When you're applying to this company that's like a beast of a company, what's going through your mind? Like, how did you perceive that? Why do you think you got hired over probably hundreds or thousands of other applicants? What was that experience like?
I literally did not take no for an answer. I flew to Arizona. I showed up there and I demanded a job. Literally. So I talked to the main guy who runs the hiring for them, and I just sat there and I just explained to him why, again, back to the persuasiveness, I explained to him how I was going to be the number one guy in that team, even though he didn't know me. He didn't know anything about me. But when you speak with that level of persuasiveness, I feel like they can kind of get that. And so he said, cool, you get 1 month. If you don't perform month 1, you're gone. And that's kind of what happened.
You flying there and like walking into their office, was that after you had been disqualified on like a remote interview, or like was that the first thing you did? How did that play out?
So I knew that my way in was to buy a ticket to an event. So I used my last money out of my previous sales job. I had like probably a few $1,000s in the bank, took that money, bought a ticket to the event, and bought a flight to Arizona. And I went there, and after the event, I approached him, the guy, and I basically I didn't even get denied. They were like, oh, we'll get back to you, we'll get back to you, we'll get back to you. Just that, in person. And I was like, I'm not taking that for an answer. And so, I got the job there, but I did not apply online or anything.
Dude, that sounds very similar to how I met you.
Yeah.
That's funny. I had no idea. So right there, like there's a lot of people coming in watching this podcast who are sales reps that would not do what you just described. They wouldn't book the ticket. They wouldn't go and talk to the guy. They wouldn't have such confidence in themselves. And these are people who are probably pretty decent at sales, like probably make good money. But like, that's where I identify, because I work with a lot of sales reps. That's where I'm starting to see you kind of like branch off from the average good sales rep. It's just like having a pair of balls and not taking no for an answer. Like actually, when you are the guy who like at the time didn't have much to offer from like a resume standpoint, right? But you were just like, I'm the guy, give me a chance, like put me on trial, I'll show you. Which, I mean, it makes sense that you've gotten where you are now with that mindset. So you get on this trial 1 month. I assume you perform because I know that you leveled up within this company. But you started as an SDR and then you worked your way up to, what was it, 36,000 in commissions in a month as a closer. Yeah. So like your first time as an SDR, and this happened fast. Like how did you go from SDR to closer and then closer to a really good closer on the team?
It was really so first month I was there, I knew I just had to blow people. I knew I had to blow them away. So I was like consistently top activity. And then I think I actually, and I don't have an official way of saying this, but I'm pretty sure I broke the record for the first month of like what a setter has done in their first month. So I think I broke that record. That's just like speculation. I'm pretty sure I did. And I also made, I think I made like 9,000 my first month as a setter. So from there on, I was like, wow, this is crazy. And my sight was set on closing because my initially I came from a closing role before this. So going back down and getting demoted to setter was a bit of an ego check for sure. But in my mind, I was like, I'm gonna spend 1 month as a setter, and then I'm going to go into closing. And I had that option. Like they said, you can go to outbound closing, and I was going to do it, but I had a really good mentor in the company who was number one there for like 4 years straight. And I was the one who was setting for him. He took me under his wing really heavy, and he was a really intense guy. And he told me just stay the course of being a setter for as long as possible. So I did that, and I think I really attribute that to why I got so good.
I think I have a understanding of why. But you mentioned you had top performance, probably broke some records, but why did you mention that you like your activity? Why was that important to you, or why do you think that was important to them?
Because if what you don't have to offer with skill, you make up for in volume always. And that goes with everything. That's why I didn't have enough to offer with skill for getting the job on their team. So I went the volume route, which is literally picking myself up physically and moving over there and not coming back without an answer. So whatever you lack in skill, make up for in volume until you get to the point where you can keep up with the skill.
That's another part of the story here where I'm seeing you branch off from like the average person, do what you can do. Like what if it's in your control, why are you not maxing it out? You know, if you really want the outcome. So most people, from my experience, aren't willing to do that. So you see through being an SDR because you know from a development standpoint, it's going to serve you in the long term. You prolonged the jump to closer. You could have moved after a month, but you didn't. When did you realize like, okay, now it's time to move to closer? Like what milestone did you hit? Who did you talk to? What influenced that jump?
I was consistently over 10K a month as a setter. And I got to the point where it was a few months and I was like, I really want to make this work, but I don't want to, because this company has the highest churn I've ever seen with a company, especially for setters and closers. But if you don't perform, like they cut the fat really fast. So I was extremely nervous about jumping in closing, even though I came from a closing role. But like being around there with killers, you're like, shoot, maybe I wasn't as good as I thought I was. And so I essentially spent like 2 months just like grinding away, attending the closing trainings, even though I wasn't supposed to, and just like doing my own work on how to become really good at closing so that I could go straight into it and make a bang, which did not happen. I got in and I lost my first 20. First 20 sales were no sales, which destroyed me. And from there on out, it was just like something clicked with objection handling, and it was instant, bro. Up to 20, 30, and then on to 40, 50 and stuff like that. But it was instant.
For those watching this, because I know, I have people that I'll bring that are going to watch this, and I know you have an audience of your own that's probably going to watch this. And I feel like that's kind of what I've seen, like from an outside lens looking in on why you've kind of popped off the way you have is like your objection handling is really, really on point. And there's a lot of people who handle objections, but there's something about the way that you do it that it resonates with people, one, like the prospects, but then also the people who are viewing it, and they're like, this makes sense. I want to learn this. I want to do it like John, If you really had to sit and break it down, the objection handling, like what were the 1-2 key unlocks that really like made this happen for you if you had to point towards something?
Yeah, it's to get people to start thinking like the person they want to be and not the person they are now. And I think it attributes a lot back to like how you perceive yourself. For me, it was always a constant internal battle of becoming the man that I wanted to be. Like that was the biggest thing for me is I want to become the leader. I want to become the guy who other people can look up to. I want to be that guy. And so to be that guy, I had to start taking actions like that guy. So the approach I took with objection handling was like, I understand everything you're telling me right now, and I understand why you feel like that's the right decision. But what you have to realize is that you're still thinking like the 5K month guy. And all we need to do is take that frame of the world off, put on the frame of the world of the person who makes 20K a month, and start making decisions like him. And if you can do that, then you can become him.
And it sounds like that is usually helping people get over some sort of like fear or belief objection, right?
Yeah.
like they lead with the smoke screen. It's financial, it's timing, and then you get down to it, and it's like they don't believe in themselves, or they just don't believe it's possible.
Exactly. Yeah. People will give an objection, but the easiest way to smoke it out is just like you need to answer two questions. Is if this person knew that they wouldn't fail if they went for it, would they do it? Yes. So then all objections are void. Time, if they knew they wouldn't fail, they would still do it. Money, if they knew they wouldn't fail, they would still do it. The objection is basically always comes down to some form of uncertainty.
So you crack the code on basically getting people to understand that they're thinking wrong, and their belief of why they're afraid is holding them back, and you start to do really well. Underperforming in this company that has a lot of churn, there's a lot of pressure to perform. You start performing, and you start, like you mentioned, went from 30, 40, 50K, adding in like management and other stuff to earn income there. It sounds like when you learned to objection handle, you were like, oh yeah, it's go time. Once you started making like the 20, 30, 40K per month, when did you realize that like scarcity mindset that you probably had in the beginning of like, oh, I don't want to jump into closing because I don't want to get fired? Or like, when did you just have that swagger of like, I'm the guy, like I'm always going to be good because I know how to do this?
Is a question like when was the moment I knew that I'm set?
Yeah, like okay, so you're making 30K per month. Your first 30K month, you probably feel good, but you don't have that like certainty that you'll be able to do it again. When did you realize, like, regardless of the opportunity, I'll be able to do this if I need to, like I'm good?
Yeah, I've come to that's happened quite a bit of times where a first month you think you can never replicate it again. I think it's when I had probably the moment when I knew I was like I'm set was when I got extremely sick for a week and I had to take calls with my camera off, and I think I closed like 80,000 that week with my camera off. And I was like, wow, this is replicatable. I can do this more than just like when I feel good. I can do this in any scenario. I can do this from anywhere in the world, whatever it is. I think that was the moment where I was like, okay, this is long lasting.
What's your experience selling sales training to salespeople?
It sucks because you're constantly dealing with ego, which is one of the hardest things to overcome. When you're selling people much older than you, it's a lot more difficult because when someone gets on with a 22-year-old kid and they're 55 years old and they've been in the game for 20 years and they see you who's been in the game for 2, it's extremely difficult to fake that level of confidence when you haven't gotten to that point yet. Because I faked it in the beginning, because obviously starting out in closing, I wasn't making the money I wanted to make. So these guys were making more than me, but I had to fake it till I made it. I had to like fake that level of certainty, fake that level of confidence until I got to the point where I was making 20, 30, 40. And then it was all ego. So I'm like, okay, you want to talk to me like this? I make way more than you. I'm 20 years younger than you. So you got to fake it till you make it.
I think that's funny because you started, I think you started posting on Twitter. Was that where you started?
I've actually been documenting everything since I dropped out September 2023 on TikTok.
Okay, TikTok. So when I first started seeing your sales objection handling content, like pushing to your now program, which we're going to talk about, I remember seeing, and I feel like I've probably seen it a couple of times, like you handling that objection of like you being the young guy or being less experienced than this person, or they have 20 years so they don't need to listen to you, which is definitely a valid objection. Like I think a lot of guys watching this have probably gotten that before, whether you're selling into high ticket or sales training or business owners or any industry. When someone says like, hey, John, yeah, what you're saying sounds good, but like you kind of lack perspective on my situation. I've been doing this longer than you. I don't know if I should take what you're saying as truth. Like what is your go-to rebuttal for that?
So I never let it get to that point because I think everything that happens down the line in sales is a consequence of something that you do wrong. So if someone tells me that, I know that I did not do a good enough job of setting myself as the leader and setting myself as holding the frame in the beginning of the call and accurately persuading them on why I understand their problems more than them by getting like the cause, the problem, the impacts, all that type of stuff and talking to them like an adult. So by the end, they don't even see my age. In fact, they're more inspired by it because they see, holy crap, this guy has put me in a blender this whole call and he's 20 years younger than me. Like, this is something I need to learn.
I mean, dude, that mindset right there, it's like, dude, I'm gonna do this so well that it doesn't even become a problem versus I'm expecting the problem to come. I need to figure out how to handle it. That's definitely sets you apart from other people. All right, guys, time out. Before we get into the next part of this podcast, quick sponsorship announcement. This episode, just like the last one, is sponsored by the Serial Sales Community. The Serial Sales Community is the place to find remote 1099 sales jobs. In the last 72 hours, we've shared 31 jobs with a varying range of on-target earnings that are all 1099 commission-based remote sales jobs. We've been doing this for 3 years. We've gotten pretty good at it. We've helped hundreds of people do it. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but if you are interested in the high-ticket remote sales space, specifically around getting out of what you're currently doing and transitioning into something that's quality while avoiding those pitfalls, go down into the description, click the link, check it out. There's a video down there for you. Now, back to the podcast. Okay, I want to ask you, before we get into like business ownership talk and just overall like what sales has done for you, when you're making really good money as a sales rep, like as a sales rep, you were making top 0.01% income amongst salespeople, but also just everybody probably. And I want to ask you two things. What was one material thing that you bought that was like maybe a milestone? It was a big box that you wanted to check. And then what is one non-material thing that you unlocked once you started making this money that really like made you happy, felt like a full circle moment, brought you a lot of fulfillment?
Yeah, the material was definitely buying my dad a good present. So I bought him like a really cool NASCAR experience, which was I've never bought someone something that of that price ever. So it was a really cool moment to be able to give that to him. But in terms of things that I bought for myself, I realized when I got to that point that it wasn't ever the money I cared about, which is a different story. But the thing that the money allowed me to start doing that's like on a non-material level is just to have peace of mind, I think, because I've always been in a scarcity mindset, like forever. So
Yeah.
like going to college, I didn't want to go. I tried trading, didn't work, broke. I'm spending all my money on that. Drop shipping, broke. Everything, I'm broke. I have nothing. All that scarcity, you get so used to it. So when you get out of that point, you're like, wow, this is like a whole new world. Now I don't have to look at my bank account to be able to go and buy Chipotle. Like I can just do it.
I have a similar experience to you. And you and I can sit here and tell people all day long, like, yeah, dude, once you get the money, like, it's not about the money. Like, it's about, the stuff that you can do because you have the money, the security, the peace of mind, what you can do for other people. But it's not really until you get there yourself where you truly experience that. Like for you, your experience when you got to buy your dad this NASCAR experience and you had that like kind of full circle fulfillment experience, I guess you can call it, you could tell yourself on the way up that is going to happen, but you don't really believe it until it happens, right? And then, I mean, you kind of just put yourself into this much healthier abundance type mindset at that point.
Yeah, 100%, bro. I think another thing that it really helped me with was just a big thing to me was always identity. Like not only did I want the number one spot, but I wanted like the self-respect. I wanted people to look at me as the guy who got it done in the face of adversity. So I think the best thing that me making that amount of money at that point, I think the best thing it did for me is to show myself that it all came back. After all the grind, after everything not working for so long, after being the loser who dropped out, who never had anything, and the guy who got clowned on for all that, like that coming full circle and making that amount of money was one of the greatest feelings I've ever felt in my life. Being able to look in the mirror and say that I am who I tell other people I am, and like I am who I say I am, is one of the best things in the world.
Yeah, you mentioned it wasn't about the money at that point, but it was about you achieving that, right? That's pretty cool. I want to shift gears into business ownership mode. You're a high-paid sales rep making top 0.0001% income. You could sit there and you could do that, but you're grinding. Just for anyone that's listening to this that you know it's out there, you don't really know what it takes. Grinding is a big part of what it takes. Like you were working what kind of hours when you were at your peak?
Dude, literally, I was getting up at 4:30 in the morning, and I was taking calls from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. every single day of the week, Saturday, Sunday too.
Yeah. So you do that, and by doing that, one, you get some padding in your bank account. Two, you get some confidence in yourself and your ability to replicate this, I'd assume. It seems like it. And three, I don't know if this is true to you, but you're maybe at this point getting exposed to other opportunities. Like people are talking to you. They're saying, hey, look, I know you're good. Like check this out over here. Or even, you're presenting yourself with your own opportunities. So what made you go from highest paid sales rep on a team to burning it down and doing your own thing?
Two moments that sparked it. Number one, I had people, so I've always seen the online money lifestyle, and I always kind of had speculations about it because when you're indoctrinated into a company like that, they want you to believe that it's not possible because they want you to sell for them forever. But I just so happened to live in a building with a few guys who were actually doing it, and I could see it in my eyes. And we hung out with them all the time, and I could literally see it in front of me. And I was like, wow, they are making so much more money than me, and they're having fun. Like they're actually living their life and not going and doing what I'm doing. So that was the first catalyst moment. The second catalyst moment was going to Austin with y'all. And I went to your event, and after hearing you guys, dude, and that's another thing. I was like, everything happens for a reason. I got texted about that event 2 days before it was happening, and I got a ticket like for, I don't even know how it happened, bro. I don't. And I just bought a flight and I went. And then that helped me see the next level, because hearing you guys talk about these crazy launches and like making all this money and all this, I was like, wow, there is really another level to this stuff. And yeah, that was my two catalyst moments.
Did you have to take off of work like last minute to come to the event?
Dude, I was so above KPI that it didn't even matter, honestly.
Yeah, when the team's so big, you sometimes have a little bit more flexibility, especially if you're above KPI. What kind of businesses were these people running that you were living in the same building with? Was it coaching, consulting, service, e-com? Like, what were they?
Growth operating, sales agency, and then some of them were selling their own courses.
Okay. So you saw that. You came to Austin, saw what we were up to, and you probably knew before, like, yeah, this is possible. I'm going to do it eventually. What was the moment where you're like, I'm quitting this job? Like, I'm doing this.
I knew when I left Austin. I knew it. I knew it was just a matter of time. So it was just the transition period from that point. I already knew what my future looked like after I left Austin. I was like, I'm paying these guys, whether they like it or not, and I'm going to do it. And sure enough, it happened.
That's funny. So, like, John came up to us. I don't want to make this all about the event that we had, but John came up to us and was like, hey, I want to do what you guys do. What does it cost? We didn't have anything to show people what we do. And he was like, whatever it costs, let me know. I'll do it. And that actually prompted us to go and make something for him specifically. And we threw out a price that we thought he'd say no to. And he was like, let's do it. And then here we are today. So that was on like the sales agency stuff, which is ripping, which I want to get into. But let's talk about that period between I'm out of this awesome high paying income job and I am pushing through the uncertainty that is starting a new business, starting two new businesses, and not really like you go from working 6 a.m. to into the night, like all day long, to having nothing, like a blank slate. What was that feeling like? Was it scary? Did you have some direction? If so, where did you find it? Like, talk a little bit about that transition period.
It was really, really tough. Very, very tough. Because it was quitting a job like that where your income just disappears like that was really difficult, especially after like developing those relationships with the company. And then now like those are kind of severed. And now you're back on your own and you kind of feel like you're starting from square one, which is how I felt during that for sure. But I think it really all boils down to the character trait that's been consistent throughout everything, which is just the commitment of I'm going to make this work. Because there were many times when I quit that I wanted to go back and that I wanted to just be like, maybe this isn't for me and go back. But it's just that commitment to just the commitment to getting through the day and to doing that day work and having like a blank space on my calendar. I think that was a huge bit of an identity crisis that I'm honestly still getting over. Because now it's like, sometimes I don't know what to do because you're just now being the business owner. It's a different type of life. But with that, it was first priority was just landing a client. Like that was it. So thankfully I had a really good backing that was like, this is what I did. And that helped me. But dude, it was failure after failure for the first few ones. And it was really hard, but it's all about just the commitment to the next day and knowing that if you stay the course long enough, it'll work out.
I mean, dude, that was, when was that? I think it was like December
Yeah.
when you kicked that off. And then just to give some context, so far in April, where's your business at? Like all together, both of them.
Together with everything, we have about like, I think like 750,000 under management or something a month.
Yeah, that's wild. I mean, so a big part of that is your own business, but like you're running pretty high margin stuff, and that's between a sales agency and a sales training. So without getting too into it, like John's figured this shit out for anyone listening. So I just want to preface like what we're about to get into. Back in December, income went to zero minus like some management stuff. And now we're at like multiple 100,000 per month. Now you're in Miami, right? Mm-hmm. So how the hell did that happen in 5 months, dude?
Dude, sometimes I ask myself the same question, but I really think it just comes back to commitment. Like I knew that it was going to work eventually because I see it in front of my eyes. I'm a huge believer in what I see. I'm a huge analyst. Like I need to have the answer before I actually do it. And I looked at you and I looked at Cole and I was like, it's there. Like it's right there. All I have to do is just do it. Like all I got to do is do the work in front of me, trial and error, and figure it out. And eventually I'll get to the point where I don't have to do this anymore. Because the way that I thought about sales and the way that I thought about sales management and the way that I'll think about everything for the rest of my life is once I figure this out, I'm good. With sales, I was so broke. Once I figure out how to sell, I'm good. I'm good for life. I'd never have to worry about money again. Of course, then my income goes to zero, but I still have the skill. But even with sales management, I'm like, okay, if I can just figure this out, I'm set. So that was a thing that kept me going the whole time where it's like, if I just figure this out, I'm set. With new ventures now, if I can just figure this out, I'm good. So one problem at a time.
Okay, so there's two things as I came up as well, two concepts, I guess we'll call them, that really served me. And I have a feeling that you probably had these run through your head at some point and they've probably helped you get where you want to be. The first one is, if not now, then when? Because you've made a lot of jumps in your career in a short amount of time here that have like propelled you. And I feel like you're a big offensive guy, similar to myself. So that was one that really served me. If not now, then when? But the second one that I want you to talk about a little bit, because I know you experienced this one, is if they can do it, so can I. Because you said, like, I'm seeing this guy do it. I'm seeing this guy do it. All the, different cities, different businesses. If they're doing it, why can't I? I would be really, really surprised if you never thought that yourself. Did you ever think that?
Oh yeah, dude, that was my mind the whole time. Seeing the guys in my building, if they can do it, I'm watching them drive around in the Lambo. I see it with my own eyes. I see them in the penthouse. I see the money. I can do it. Like I know I can. So it was almost just like an anger. Cause it's like, dude, if I can achieve this and I can get to this point where I'm making what no one else is making in sales, this is easy. I can do that in a heartbeat. Of course, it took way longer it was way harder than I thought it was. But it's just, I think it's the mindset to just go all the way with things, which is another thing that really helped me all the way through. Was like, I literally got it tattooed on me, bro, because it's like the most important thing to me. Like the poem by Charles Bukowski of going all the way, just like throwing away everything and focusing singularly on one goal and not stopping until you get there. So with that mindset, I truly believe that literally anything is possible.
I like it. So what is, you're here, we don't even know where this is going to go. Like we're so early that it's hard to project out where you're going to take the current ventures, but like what is your next goal? It can be a business revenue milestone. It could be a personal milestone. Like what is your next milestone that you're chasing after right now?
I think now it's a little bit deeper than just money. I want to level up in all areas. Like, of course, the financial is solid now, and I don't have to, like, I have the peace of mind with that, but I think it's becoming a better, well-rounded human being. Like I said, everything for me is based on identity, and I want to fulfill my purpose, and I want to be the man that I strive to be, which has very little to do financially, I'm realizing, and more about to do with character. So I think those are the next steps for me, is getting super strong in my faith, becoming really good, like mentally, like a warrior mindset. I can handle and withstand anything, and just like advancing my life in really every area, collecting all the infinity stones, essentially.
That makes total sense. That's kind of the point that I came to as well. Once I realized, like, all right, dude, I can make money. Like that's not the hard part anymore. Like what is hard? What is going to bring me more fulfillment than seeing a higher number in the bank account? Because at a certain point, like after, you might have a different experience, but after like 20, 30K per month, like your life doesn't really change. My life didn't change much. I don't know. Miami's a little bit different than Austin is. But do you have an idea in your mind where that threshold was, where it's like, all right, dude, as long as I can do this, like my life doesn't change much and I can focus on other things? What is that number in your head?
It's like there's the ego number and then there's the real number, which is, dude, I only live on like 8,000 a month. I have a nice apartment, but I don't even own a car. So it's like, it's hard to say with that, but I want to stack up to the point where I have 8 figures, and then I want to fall off the face of the planet, go in hibernation. That's kind of the race right now, is racing to the point where I have like at least 5 mil to where I could chill and have some money coming in passively, buy my family stuff along the way, but I will not be indulging in anything degenerate.
Not indulging. All right, dude, let's talk about the McLaren. So like 2 months ago, a month ago, you're like, yeah, dude, I'm looking at this McLaren. It's pretty sick. You could totally buy it right now. But then I don't know what it was, a couple weeks later, you're like, you know what, I'm not going to buy the McLaren yet. You mentioned you don't even have a car. What
Yeah.
went through your head at that point? Like, the McLaren is super sick. You could have bought it. Why didn't you?
Because I realized I realized what it meant to me. Like why do I want a McLaren? And this goes back to like probing with sales. Like you starting to understand myself was a really important thing. It's like, why do I want the McLaren? Because I want status. But I can get status doing something that fulfills me. So why am I getting the McLaren? I'm wasting money for no reason. And it's like fulfilling some ego that shouldn't be fulfilled, because what happens when I get it and then a month later I want something else and I want something bigger? Because if you always base your self-worth based off materialistic things, and I make 200,000 a month, what happens when I encounter the guy who makes 210? But if my self-worth is based on like confidence with I am who I say I am and fulfilling my potential in all areas, then that's something no one can take away from me. And if someone makes more than me, I don't care, because I'm fulfilled myself.
You just mentioned something that is interesting. Like, you obviously, as a high achieving man, like, you're interested in status to a certain extent, but not through the material item that is the McLaren. Like, in what other aspects do you intend to pursue status that are not a cool car or a crazy watch?
I think growing my social media for sure. I wanna grow that, but for the right reasons. Like, I would love to use it as a tool to inspire people and really help out, which does bring status for sure, but really help out like who I used to be. Because I always wanted someone who really spoke it how it was and didn't. And I hated all the guru stuff, like the McLarens, the Lambos, about like all. I hated it, bro, because I was like, is this real life? But I want to show what that actually looks like from a normal perspective of someone who came from the scarcity and is seeking more things than just money, and show that type of life off, because I think the world needs more of that.
Going from 36, 40, 50K per month to 200K per month plus, what did you have to give up to do that?
Dude, everything. Like time, energy, health, relationships, everything. It's always a sacrifice to get to the next level. For me, going from 0 to 30, it was the biggest sacrifice I've ever had to make in my life. I literally got up and moved across the country, taking the bus to work. I didn't have a car again until I could buy one, and like sleeping at my sister's place because I didn't have anything. And from that point, it was like, I'm sacrificing time, I'm sacrificing status, I'm sacrificing everything so I can get it later down the line. So yeah, bro, everything was sacrificed for sure.
And would you change any aspect of it looking
No,
back?
never in a million years.
Yeah. And the confidence that you answer that with is really solid as well. Dude, I keep feeling this thing of like, I had the same exact experience. Like, I sacrificed a lot, but I know that the sacrifice today will be worth it in the future. You know, because like once you get past the monetary, the financial, the money in your bank account, like you kind of start looking out towards bigger picture stuff that doesn't just benefit you, but benefits your people or a lot of people, like the social media thing. So let's talk holistically, because we're gonna wrap this up shortly. Imagine a life where you never get into sales. What would you be doing instead?
Dude, I have no idea. What would I do if I weren't in sales? I would have figured it out for sure. But I would have been, if I didn't go into sales. Dude, I probably would be in the military, to be honest with you. Like I was always, it wasn't ever about sales. It was about fulfillment. It was about fulfilling my purpose. And I couldn't think of another thing other than that or entrepreneurship, sales.
And the decision, this so minuscule and tiny in the grand scheme of things, but that one light bulb moment that you had with your, the other sales guys when you were selling for that marketing agency, where you're like, I need to drop out and go all in sales. In the time, it was such a large decision, but on like a small scale. But when you project that out to where you are now, not even 2 years later, or maybe 2 years about, maybe a little bit more, somewhere very recently, it's just crazy to think that the one decision to drop out because of that conversation, to go all in on sales, has led you to this lifestyle, which, I mean, you make more than most people make in a year in a single month, and you do it from probably a beautiful apartment in Miami. Have you ever sat and thought about how insane that little moment way back here kind of led you to where you are?
Yeah, dude, totally. And there's so many of those moments along the way. I truly believe in going all the way to one path, and everything will start to unlock for you. I think it's like divine intervention. So there was a point where I was so 1 foot in, 1 foot out, that I truly believe a higher power was like, you are meant for this. I'm going to force you to do this. And I think there's a lot of those moments along the way, because I can think of like 3 pivotal moments: that moving to Arizona, buying a ticket, which I did not have the means for, and then going to Austin. Those are three pivotal moments that totally changed my trajectory that I don't know why I did any of those things. It doesn't make any sense.
In like looking back, it makes perfect sense. But back then, you're like, I don't know if this is right. I don't know if I should do this. You just somehow, maybe someone tells you should, you get this last minute feeling and then you do it. Like it's easy to connect the dots looking back. But I wanted to ask you, I know that as you're pursuing a sales career, business ownership, it's easy to doubt if you're going in the right direction, especially, again, looking forward, not backwards. Tell me about a time where you were the closest to quitting, on whether it was as a sales rep. I mean, not like actually quitting your sales job to do this, but like you were close to quitting sales or you were close to not doing this business. Tell me about that time.
Dude, it's always been a thought in my mind every day, but I've never come close, truly. Like I've always had the thought of like, should I? But never in my life have I even came close to the conclusion that I should stop or quit.
Yeah. And I preface that too, because like you quitting your job isn't necessarily you quitting, you know, like you having a challenging problem and then not thinking you can figure it out is quitting. So that's a valid answer. What would you tell the person who's watching this that they're either brand new to sales or thinking about sales as the vehicle that can unlock them their dream life? Because that's what we're all about. We want to show people how in the right opportunity, sales can create leverage in your life outside of just the financial perspective that is really worth working towards. Like, what's your best advice to that newer person?
Figure out what you want and then go all the way for it. Don't change paths. Changing paths is the worst thing you can do. Pivot. There's a difference between changing and pivoting, like going back to what you were doing. Changing business models, like it's just dumb. Pick one path that you think you want to do and give it a full year of undivided attention and effort and burn the boats and go all in on it. Because there's a certain type of energy and a certain chip on your shoulder that you get when you realize that, like, if this doesn't work out, there's no if this doesn't work out, because you're just totally screwed if it doesn't. Like for me, that was me dropping out. I was like, there is no way that I can fail, because if I do, I'm so done. Like it's not even an option. So give yourself no option and just prevail, bro. Just keep on committing. Keep on going day after day.
When is the right time to pivot in your mind?
When you max out the vehicle that you're in. For me, I always knew the right time. I always knew once I got to the point where I was making really, really good money as a sales rep and I felt like I maxed out my skill, it was time to go. So as soon as I hit that, I jumped.
Imagine a reality, like in order to make that educated decision to know when to pivot, you have to have perspective. And usually you get that through people around you, whether you pay to be around them or you live next to them or you just meet these people in the wild. How would all this look differently if you didn't have the outside influence from other people who were either ahead of you or inspiring to you? Like, do you think you would have still made the same decisions? Do you think you would have found success as fast as you did as a sales rep and then as a business owner? Like, what do you think the reality is if you just don't have outside perspective from other people?
I think it makes it a lot harder for sure. Like there's always going to be influences in your life, whether it's like an outside mentor or whether it's a friend that you see who sees success, but there's always going to be influences no matter what. So without the influence from, let's say, you or the influence from other people that I've met along the way, then I feel like I would just keep on coasting until I burned myself totally out. Because that's like, there has to be, if a ship is like setting sail, there has to be a way to like direct it. You know what I mean? And if the route never changes, it's going to keep on going straight. You see what I mean? So like without outside influences, like the wind pushing its sails left, right, whatever it is, you're just going to keep on going down the road until you crash, until you burn out. So I think without that, I would be screwed.
I've found peace in this statement, which is like, as a man, you need a mountain to climb. If you don't have a mountain to climb, you're screwed, you know? And the mountain changes, man. At first, it's 10K per month, it's 30K per month, it's 100K per month. And then you realize like, well, now I can do that again if I need to. Like, what's the next mountain? Like, you have to have that mountain. So as a salesperson, and we'll wrap this up right now. But as a salesperson, you guys, John is 22, by the way. I can't remember if I mentioned that, but you guys just witnessed like a masterclass in what it takes to get what you want out of life, to leverage, you know, one experience into another to build the dream life that you maybe don't even think is possible. John, where do people find you? And I want you to talk a little bit about High Ticket Syndicate as well.
Yeah. So you can find me on Instagram at Johnny Ma, JOHNNYYMAU. And then on YouTube, same thing. TikTok, same thing. Twitter, same thing. And then, yeah, I do have an advanced sales training program. It's really not for beginners. It's mainly for people who are looking to hit the next level, who don't know how to get there themselves. And that's really it.
Yeah. We run similar but different businesses. Like we work in the high ticket niche. I would say and I know a lot of the people in this space, and I feel like you do as well, John. From what I've seen from like John's social media and the results that he gets people, some of the best, exactly what he calls it, advanced sales training. If the bottleneck for you guys right now is closing deals, like you have the opportunity to close and you just can't, you should look at John's thing. He'll close you on the call or his
Yeah.
team will. It'll
It's
show
not
you.
even, dude, it's not even about the advanced stuff that people miss because there's so much sales training. It's like, how do you make a lot of money in sales? That's what I wanted to focus everything on because for me, the difference between me going from 15 to 40, I didn't get better at sales to do that. I got more creative and I learned other ways of making money in sales, upsells, renewals, uh, doing no sales properly, workflows, like all these different methods that you genuinely don't have to be better at sales at to do. You just have to be really creative and really smart to get it done.
Yeah, man. Problem solving is a really valuable skill. I think you have it. Well, anyways, let's wrap this up. You and I are probably going to have a second in-person meeting, hopefully in May, right? Might get on a boat. Off topic, but like living in Miami, man, what do you rate it? Is it good? Is it bad? What are your favorite things to do?
Honestly, I love it just because there's multiple different Miamis you can live. I think having a really good group of solid friends here who have their heads on straight is extremely important. But being by the beach is just amazing. Like there's no more peace I can have than walking outside, walking on the key next to the ocean. Like I absolutely love that.
Cool. Well, if you're someone that John and I both know and you're in Miami end of May, hit us up. And if you're not someone we know but you need to get better at sales, hit them up. I appreciate you coming on. This was episode number 2 of the Because of Sales podcast. We have the newsletter, which is going to be linked below. We're going to have the highlights of this podcast linked there, along with a lot of cool like news, AI tools, methods, and stuff that you should know as a sales rep, regardless of what industry you're in. So go hit up John. His stuff will be in the description. Go subscribe to our newsletter, and we'll see you in episode number 3. Peace. All right, that wraps up episode 2 of the Because of Sales podcast. If you have not done it yet, first link in the description, subscribe to our newsletter. If it's not out already, it's about to come out. I don't want you to miss it. Stay on the cutting edge as a sales rep, make your job easier, beat the competition. That's why we exist. If you want to connect with John, all of his links are going to be in the description as well. Highly encourage you to do that. This guy is a killer and he's a great person to have in your network. Thank you for watching this episode, you guys, and I'll see you in the next one.